And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BlackBerry Central podcast number 4. I'm
Hi.
your host for today, Scott. We got Jerid here,
Hi.
who cut me off, and then we have our community guest back from podcast number 1, Khalid.
Hey.
So Khalid, we never really gave you a chance last time to fully introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Awesome. So I am in Edmonton, Alberta. I'm a mechanical engineer. Not much else to say about myself. As for BlackBerry, I made it on the legacy devices to the 9700 and then got off. Went to Samsung and iPhone, tried them both out, and Z10 came out, and I haven't gone back to anything else.
Awesome. So, is it just a pure enjoying the device aspect that you have interest in the company, or is there anything else at all?
Yeah, I just enjoy the devices. I don't see anything, like nothing else from battery life to the hub, everything. It all just works for me. I don't need anything else.
Perfect. Well, it's great to have you back, man. We enjoy having you on the show, especially any community guests. So let's dive into topics. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Leap, BBM Beta / the subscription services that they're starting to push out, BlackBerry Venice, device code name Venice, and then we're going to dive a little bit into rumors. For our viewers out there, our live viewers, if you're watching this live, feel free to either comment in the blog post, we'll be watching it, or tweet us live. Our Twitter is up there, so tweet us live, and we'll be sure to answer your questions if we have a chance, or go on any topic. So let's talk about Leap. Leap pre-orders went up today. Jerid, what do you think? Is it going to be just as good as the Classic? Do better than Classic? Worse than Classic? What's your thoughts on the Leap and the pre-orders?
I think the Leap is more or less targeted to the same sort of demographic that the Classic is going after. The Leap will mostly be used for a. Sorry, just hearing some echo. It's going to be a fleet device, mostly as a fleet device. It's low cost. It's not a super high-powered device, and people who have been waiting for a replacement for the Z10 might just jump over to the Leap rather than waiting for a replacement for the Z30. I think it'll do well, especially if it is a fleet device, but I don't really know how well it's going to do amongst just regular consumers. Because it doesn't have the appeal, the high specs to really get a whole lot of attention from, like, say, retailers or regular consumers.
Yeah, that's some fair point. I know when the specs first got released, and I was chatting with one of the groups I'm in, there was an individual who said they were interested in Leap and moving from the Z30 to the Leap. And then when I did a comparison between the specs of the Z30 and the Leap, well, the Leap actually loses out a bit. Kyle, you said you're still using the Z10. Does the Leap interest you at all as an everyday consumer?
Well, since the Z10, I've moved to the Passport.
Oh,
I
never.
have the Z30 also.
Oh.
I have the Z30. I just don't see a reason to purchase a Leap.
But let's say if you were still on your Z10, would you be interested if you hadn't made that move yet?
I would, for sure I would.
Yeah. Me personally, I'm still running on a Z30 right now. I don't have much interest in the Leap. Having a look at the specs, I'm losing 200 megahertz of processing speed. I think there's a bit of RAM that's out missing as well. So I think there will be a difference. I think the Classic actually will probably be initially a bit better because the Classic had already a core demographic that wanted that device, that were actually calling for that device. Those CEO types, those C-level execs saying, "Give us the Classic." So John Chen, launched that right away with
the
demographic.
The trackpad diehards.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think the Classic will immediately do a little bit better than Leap in that regards. But in the other side of the coin is that the Leap is going to definitely go for a broader demographic. Just like you said, Jerid, it's going to be more of a fleet device. So maybe the C-level execs will have the classics, and then the underlings will have Leaps. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people in business, whatever, that have been using touchscreen phones for a number of years now, and aren't really, like, they would view a keyboard as a step backwards as far as technology goes, maybe. So they'd probably be more willing to go to a full touchscreen device, and the Leap would be for them. So if they had the choice between a classic and a Leap, phones or Samsung devices or Android devices, would probably be more likely to go for a Leap than a classic.
Yeah, maybe, but at the same time, it all goes back to personal preference. I got a buddy of mine who had a Q10, work phone Q10, and then he was up for an upgrade, and I was talking about the Z30 and how great it was. So he's upgraded that, but now he since hates the virtual keyboard and autocorrect and stuff like that. It drives him nuts. So I'm
really?
like, well, he's going to move to the classic most likely once his next device is ready for Switch. So. Now he's a bit older, he's like in his 40s, but he's in that mid-upper management level. So
okay.
It all depends, right? It's all personal preference in the end of the keyboard type. So, sorry, coffee down the wrong way. But there's still a lot to see, right? Classic hasn't been out a whole long time, and we'll see how the Leap pre-orders do. The best we're going to get is whether or not it's sold out. Unfortunately, we don't get access to numbers, which I wish we did. But maybe one day. So let's move on. BBM Beta. There was a new BBM Beta that was released. Jerid, you were talking, you had it. So why don't you just run over to Beta, what the changes are, and what we can expect right now.
Well, the biggest changes to the Beta, you have access to I think it's the messages you can retract. I myself don't really have much use for that. I think it was the last official release. You can get rid of that little icon next to the send button to get rid of the timed messages. I got rid of that because I don't use them. The other really big one is getting more access to the contacts in your phone that don't have BBM. So there would be three main sections on your contact list. You have your BBM contacts, you have contacts that are in your phone that have BBM, but you don't have them on your BBM list yet.
Huh.
And it's easy to just see who has BBM, but you haven't added yet. So you can just send your invites really quickly. And at the bottom, you just have plain old contacts who don't have BBM. And I think you can send basically a text through BBM to these contacts. It can get kind of confusing if you have contacts that you have their text, their number, and they're on your BBM contacts, because they show up more than once. They'll show up in your BBM list and then also your regular plain contacts down at the bottom there. So I've been playing around with that. Not a whole lot of action. People haven't been replying to me, so it's kind of hard to tell, see what's working. And I believe there's some other changes that I personally haven't really noticed a whole lot different, just from casual use. Was there another big feature that I missed? I think there was. I think there was three big ones. I think it was just bug improvements and just polishing it. So those are probably the two big changes, and that was it.
Cal, are you on the new BBM Beta, or are you still with the?
I'm not on the new BBM Beta.
No.
I'm kind of happy about that. I like the message retraction. I don't know why they would make that a subscription.
Perfect. So now that they're moving it to a subscription, I think you only get like 3 message retractions possible. I'm not sure if it's within a conversation or total, but Cal, are you prepared now as a customer to go ahead and turn around and start paying for that service?
I'm not ready. Like I've paid for the subscription for a custom pin really for no reason, just to have it. But I would probably, if I did want it, I'd probably get rid of the custom pin and put that money towards subscription. If I were to even do the subscription for the retracting messages.
It was a interesting thing, they put this service in, or this option in to be able to retract the messages or time the messages, and they put it in free. But they said, hey guys, it's for free now, but later it's going to be, you're going to have to subscribe for it. And I think that was a huge mistake. You don't give customers access to free services and then later down the road pull it away from them and say, now you got to pay for it. I think it's a bad business model. I think it's probably one of the faults that John Chen's made so far. Not that he's made a whole lot, but probably one of them. And I'm not prepared to go ahead and pay whatever it is for retraction or time messages. I'm with Jerid. I never use the time messages. I think it falls out of Snapchat, and I find Snapchat just completely teeny bopper application. Let me fire a picture with a message on it that will delete itself in 5 seconds. Come on, we're not Mission Impossible here, right?
This is your message if you choose to accept it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't use BBM that much. I wish I did, but there's no way I'd pay money for any of the premium features that BBM offers. If I used it regularly, if I had a lot more contacts on there that would use it every day, I might, but there really isn't any gotta-have features right now. As far as the offering features to people and then pulling them back and then asking for payments so they can use them again, it would have been better. It would have been better visibly if they called it a trial, if they called it a free trial first. But they never actually used that word. So it looks like they offer these features and then they took them away. Say, hey, if you like those, you got to pay for it.
No, that's a really good point. Just that in that single word of trial in there might have made the difference.
They could still do it. They could say, hey, we have these features here. If you want to try them, you can, but you could only have them for, say, 30 days. After 30 days, because it would be tied to your BBID. Yep. You have it for 30 days. We take it back, and if you want it again, you got to pay for it if you like it.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
That would be good. That would be like that would increase value for BBM, and then instead of just giving it to everybody and then taking it away, if BlackBerry giveth, BlackBerry taketh away. Yeah, they could easily do that, and just, I mean, it seems pretty simple, and it would be a much better approach than what they did first.
Yeah. I think the big difference for me is that I use BBM. I do use it a lot. I do have a fair number of contacts on there. I'm daily talking to a number of friends and whatnot. But it's all social. I don't use my Z30, which I have here, is not anything for work because I have a separate BlackBerry Curve. I think it's a 9100 or something like that for work. And we actually don't allow BBM on it. It's blocked, so I don't use BBM.
Oh, really?
Yeah, don't get me started. I'll go off for about 4 hours about how useless my BlackBerry for work is because it's more than anything but mobile email. Oh. Anyway, so for me personally, retracting messages, time messages aren't needed. If I fire a wrong message to someone like, oops, sorry, forget about that. Or if I even think about retracting the message, I may do it, but most of the time I don't. So I know I'm not going to subscribe to it once it flips over. I haven't subscribed to anything yet on BBM because I haven't seen any real value. I think the custom pins, it's just a gimmick in the end. Like, no offense to you, Cal, that you got one. If you want one, it's cool. But for me personally, I don't need a custom pin because I don't need to share my pin that much.
If it was something you put onto a business card, then yeah, I can see how a custom pin makes sense. Or if you're constantly giving out your PIN to other people. So having a custom PIN makes more sense than having a jumble of numbers and letters. But I'm just not that popular.
Yeah. You and I both. We'll go to business together, Jerid. Maybe we'll come popular one day. Like Cal with this. What do you say, Cal?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit, future. There was a word hit the street that the what we have nicknamed the Glide is going to be codenamed Venice. What do you
It
guys?
has a name now. It has a name.
Yeah. So BlackBerry device Venice, whatever you want to
Yep.
call it. Thoughts around that, guys. Anyway, Cal, you want to lead us off? What's your thoughts on the
I
Venice?
I hope the name doesn't stick, I'll be honest. I don't like that name.
Oh, trying to glitch out.
Mm. You don't like Venice, but
No, I don't. I like glide
Uh,
works or slider or something like that, but Venice
well,
just
it's just a code name. It's not. I mean, Rio was a code name, and honestly, Rio was probably a better name than Leap, but that's me. But yeah, Venice won't be the final name. It's going to go to market with a different name. So it could still be something like Glide or Slide or something like that.
yeah. Well, let's
Or
hope so.
what if it's another verb like leap?
oh, I kind of hope not. Although,
Yeah.
like the article I wrote, it's still much better than Z50
Yeah.
or whatever. Let's get away from those alphanumeric branding of naming, which
Mhm.
John Chen obviously has done, thank God. But Venice it's interesting. Let's think about the city of Venice. You got water all over the place, and
Yeah.
guys on gondolas or whatever, just putting through the city. So
Here's a here's a question. Do you think the code name, because the last few code names have been city names, and the city name has had some sort of connection to the device. So the Z3 was Jakarta, and
mhm.
Jakarta is the capital city of the area that they were really targeting with the Z3. And then Rio, I think, you think the Leap being sort of a mid-range device is, I think Rio is kind of an emerging market for smartphones. Do you think
Yep.
the Leap would be better suited for a market like that? Venice, do you think that has anything to do with their sort of marketing plan or target demographic for the slider device?
It's something I've been racking my brain about for a while, even since before BB10 days when we heard the code name of Z10 was London. And
Yeah.
I've been following that for a long time just to see if there's any correlation between code names and their marketing or something to do with the device. So
Like, are they
so
really
far,
choosing the cities for a reason?
yeah. So far, it seems that only Jakarta, really, the Z3 has been really out there. We all know the passport code name was Windermere. I can't find anything that really collates that.
I
Although,
think there's a Windermere area around Ontario.
yeah, but my understanding was that the passport was really developed and targeted for England. So if the passport was named London, then we would actually start seeing some correlation.
Windermere.
So, but Venice for a code name is interesting. We'll have to see where it comes out. So maybe they'll
Yep.
market it as the device between work, good for both work and play.
hmm
Right? You got the physical keyboard, but you also got that they're talking now 5.1-inch screen, which you can still do whatever you want on it. So maybe they're going to market it that way.
Still want it.
Still want it. Still ready to
Still
line
want
up
it.
for it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cal? You seem to pick up every BlackBerry 10 device out there. Are you going to line up for it, or are you going to wait? What's your...
Oh, for sure. It's a for sure buy. Like
Yeah.
and I have a problem. I don't sell them after I buy them. I have every BlackBerry sitting right here in front of me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to keep it.
So do you have like a
My
little
only
case or a
problem-
stand or something?
Yeah, they just
The
sit all
display
on
case?
top of each other. My only problem with this slider device, though, is that I've gotten so used to the Passport keyboard. I wish it was the 3-row.
It's very interesting because everybody's what we're hearing so far is touch enable, but if you look at the close-up image and the renders that Dylan has done on the site, it's the classic style keyboard. So is it a classic style touch enable keyboard or is it just a pure classic style. Well, wait, see.
I don't know. There is already a lot of tech in that phone. If it was a touch-enabled keyboard, plus the curved screen, plus all these other bells and whistles in the phone, I can't imagine how expensive that phone would be.
It's probably still not expensive enough for me not to line up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I would wait. I would line up.
Unless it's 10 grand and it's sitting next to the iWatch. I actually was walked by the Apple store at the Rideau Center in Ottawa there Friday, and there were so many people googling over the iWatch. I'm like, why are you guys even bothering? I don't understand, but I never get Apple folk. So let's move on to a little bit of Rumour Roundup stuff to finish off the podcast.
What are people talking about?
What are people talking about? There's talk about Huawei. Pronounce that.
Huawei.
Yeah, sure. I was pronouncing that before we kicked off. Interest in BlackBerry. Thoughts?
There's a lot of companies interested in buying BlackBerry. Though even if Huawei actually went through the motions to try acquire BlackBerry, I think they'd hit the same roadblock that Lenovo hit, which would be the Canadian government. The Canadian government didn't allow Lenovo to really make a proper bid for BlackBerry for security concerns. So I don't know. I think any company would have difficulty buying BlackBerry because BlackBerry is so tied up with Canadian telecoms and the whole security thing. It just seems more difficult for Chinese companies to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't happen. I'll be quite frank. It just will not happen. Chinese companies are on a no buy list within the Canadian government that if you try to buy something which Canadian government deems to be of national interest, it's going to get blocked right away. So China is one of the countries on that list, and there's a number of them. I personally just don't think it would be a good fit. Huawei, or however you want to pronounce it, Huawei is just the branding in BlackBerry. Their branding in BlackBerry did not go hand in hand. Like when we were talking about before we kicked the podcast off, what's the first word that came out of your mouth? Cheap phones, right? Whereas BlackBerry wants to be seen as a solid type device, not cheap.
Well, that's for this market. Huawei's phones, like I worked for Virgin Mobile for a while, and the only Huawei phones we actually saw were entry levels. But I know in China they actually do manufacture like massive phones, like massive high quality phones, but they don't release them here. So I don't know if buying BlackBerry would be sort of a strategy to get into the market, but they would have to compete with Samsung, which I don't know if they can.
What's your thoughts, Cal? Would you like to see BlackBerry get bought by Huawei or anybody?
Definitely not. I wouldn't want that, but what company would be able to buy BlackBerry then?
It'd probably have to be an American company.
Yeah.
American, I think if Samsung truly made a formal bid, there would be serious potential there because of the latest trade agreements between Canada and South Korea. I think there would be a potential there for Samsung or who else is down there? I forget who else is in South Korea. But I think there would be potential there for sure. My thought for a long time was Sony. I was actually saying Sony should buy BlackBerry because Sony's been was having a brutal time of entering into the Android market. It just couldn't get moving. It seems like
Sony's having a brutal time everywhere right now.
Yeah, period. So I think with Sony hardware, with BlackBerry software, and putting QNX into the PlayStation fleet and so on, as well as their TVs, I think would have been a great fit. But I think that ship has now since sailed with the latest agreements with Samsung.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
having a waterproof BlackBerry would be killer.
Oh yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But let's leave this because for the few viewers we got out there, we do plan on having a special guest down the road within the next month or so, and the whole topic will be about BlackBerry Financial, talking about potential purchases BlackBerry could do, or even who BlackBerry could either strategically partner with and or be bought by. So we'll leave that topic. We'll move on. BlackBerry did name OS updates. Thoughts on that, guys? What do you think, Cal? Should they just stick with 10.3.1 or 10.4, or should they move on to naming conventions for them?
No, they got to move on. They got to start naming it. Everyone, like, even trying to communicate with buddies that have BlackBerries, trying to talk to them about which update they're on, they don't know what numbers they are.
Mhm.
But I mean, if it was like Android, I could talk to either of my brothers and say what operating system are you on, or whatever, what update are you on, and they can sit there and tell you, yeah, KitKat or Lollipop, they know.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jerid, what do you think? Should we move over?
I'm actually a little bit more torn on this, because well, the way that they have it now, because Android, like the difference between KitKat and Lollipop is 4 and 5, but those are sort of just. I'd probably say the differences between 4 and 5 is probably the difference between 10.2.1 and 10.3.1 for BlackBerry. But I mean, there was differences in the design, and so it looks and functions a little bit different. But for the BlackBerry ones, they're just numbers, and they don't really have any meaning. So if the numbers change, like they increase by 1, it's really hard to visualize a big difference between two of them. So if they were named two different names, you could tell they're obviously very different because they have different names. But I don't know, because if you have a ton of different names floating everywhere, it can be just as confusing as having all these numbers. But having 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, those seem like very small incremental changes and improvements, whereas if you go from one name to another, it seems like a bigger change. I don't know.
It kind of goes back to my whole article. What's in a name, right? And where I compared basically alphanumeric to a name to a actual name, and I started off with talking about Corvette versus the CX-17, which I'm amazed that I can still remember that.
Yeah.
And to me personally, I think names, it means something and gives us an idea. And OS names, well, I don't think in the background they'll change the name from 10.3 to 10.4 or anything like that. I think there is still a requirement for that name to be assigned to it, just like Cal said, and it allows the non-techies to have an idea of where they are within the software spectrum. And
Yeah.
my biggest thing about the whole BlackBerry 10 thing is, what happens when we get the BlackBerry 10.9?
Yeah, there is a limit on how many 10 point whatevers you can have.
Yeah.
Because you can only go up to like 10.9 before.
Yeah, before we hit BlackBerry 11.
Yeah. But keep in mind the whole reason it's called BlackBerry 10, the operating system called BlackBerry 10, is because BBX was taken. BBX was taken, and they were sort of spooked with a lawsuit by whoever owned the rights to the name BBX. It was supposed to be a BlackBerry Q and X kind of merge for the name, but I mean it was taken, so they're like, we'll just change the name to 10, so X Roman numeral for 10, and it's not future proofed. So if they want to, actually, even if they want to change the marketing for the operating system, they could just throw a name on it and then change the name every time there's a big update, and it would be easier for people to sort of get a sense that things are new and things are changing.
No, it's definitely a thought for them to consider, but that's my whole thing is, what happens when we get the 10.9 and the next update comes, and then the viewing of that, right? The perception of of this is going to be a huge thing, because all those who will then, at that point in time, have legacy devices, which is probably like 4 or 5 devices generations down the road from now, is, well, I'm on a BlackBerry 10 device, and BlackBerry 11 comes out, is my device going to run it? And they might even say, well, if I buy this new BlackBerry 10 device and we're at 10.8, and they go to BlackBerry 11, is that going to be so different that my BlackBerry 10 device won't be able to run it? So these are all that type of questions in the back of my mind that the company needs to be able to get itself away from, and by naming the actual updates, but still having that whole numbering system in the background might be the way that they can do it. Much like how Android has done with Lollipop and KitKat and all that jazz. I just hope they don't use Candy as their naming convention, because I find that a little bit childish personally.
Yeah, and they can't use cities because that's what they use for their code names.
But that pretty well brings us up to time, guys. It's been half an hour now. I think we've had a great discussion. Cal, it's been great to have you back out again tonight. Jerid, buddy, it's good to see you and chat with you as always. Viewers out there, thanks for listening in on the BlackBerry Central podcast. Yeah, and if you want to become a member just like Cal here and come in on our podcast, feel free to get in touch with us, mainly with Dylan, or drop us a line. And you never know, you might see yourself on the BlackBerry Central podcast.
The next guest could be you.
Exactly. And I'll end this with one last thing, and that is go Habs go for the Stanley Cup Finals. We are going. Calgary. But yeah, the playoffs are on. I think Game 1 is Wednesday. So
Calgary's got momentum.
Price for the Hart, price for the Vezina, and he already took the Jennings. So until next time, guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for coming.
Good show, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.